A traumatized billionaire who no longer trusted anyone installed dozens of secret cameras throughout the entire house to watch every step of the new maid hired to care for his paralyzed daughter. He was certain he would discover something wrong, something hidden, something that would justify the constant fear he had carried since the tragedy that destroyed his family. But instead, the recordings showed a scene so unexpected that he was left completely speechless, the kind of moment no one would ever imagine seeing through a hidden camera. And it was exactly there in that instant that everything began to change. But the reason behind it is one of the most surprising parts of the entire story. Before we continue with this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video, because when you stop doing this, YouTube understands that you don't like this content and stops recommending good stories like this. Oh, and don't forget to comment below where you're watching us from. We love to know that. After the death of his wife and the accident that left his daughter Lily unable to walk, Adrian Stone changed completely. The man who once traveled the world and trusted entire teams to handle his empire now preferred to stay hidden inside his own house. He avoided anyone he did not know, and he watched every corner of his mansion as if danger could appear at any moment. He walked through the halls, checking locks, alarms, and automated systems he had ordered to be upgraded again and again. His staff worked in silence, always careful not to surprise him or break his strict routines. When he learned that a new caregiver named Emma Rivera had been hired to help Lily, his first reaction was suspicion, not relief. Even before meeting her, he imagined every possible trick she could use to hurt him or his daughter. To him, her arrival was another threat he needed to control from the first second. When Emma finally walked into the mansion for the first time, Adrian did not greet her with warmth. He stood with his arms crossed, studying her like a problem he needed to solve. Emma looked calm, carrying only a small bag with her personal items and the documents the agency had given her. She introduced herself in a steady voice, but Adrian barely nodded. He wanted to see if she would show signs of dishonesty, nervousness, or hidden intentions. The security system registered her steps, and he mentally noted every detail of her expression. He asked her questions in a short, cold tone, trying to observe whether she hesitated or contradicted herself. Even while she answered politely, he kept his attention sharp, convinced that being careful was the only way to protect his home. As soon as she settled in the guest room assigned to her, Adrian went to his private office and checked the feeds of the newly installed cameras. No one knew about them except him. He had personally selected the places where they were hidden, including one behind a decorative panel, another inside a smoke detector, and another in the corner of the hallway leading to Lily's room. He told himself it was the only reasonable thing to do. People had taken advantage of him before, business partners, employees, even supposed friends, and he was determined not to let anything like that happen again. While he watched the screens, he noticed Emma unpacking her items carefully, folding her clothes, and placing her notebook on the desk. She did nothing suspicious, but Adrian believed that danger often came slowly, disguised as normal routine. He continued monitoring her even when there was nothing unusual to see. Lily, who had been sitting quietly near the window, followed parts of the first day with quiet eyes. Her wheelchair was positioned where she could see the hallway without being noticed. She had grown used to her father's worry and the tight control he placed on everything, but she still felt the tension that filled the house. She watched Emma pass by her door with a gentle, "Hi, Lily," but the girl did not answer. After the accident, Lily rarely spoke unless she absolutely needed to. She had closed herself off, not out of anger, but because the world felt too heavy to talk about. She noticed the way her father looked at Emma as if she was carrying something dangerous. Lily did not share his level of fear, but she had learned long ago that arguing with him only made him more anxious. As the hours passed, Emma explored the mansion following the instructions she had been given. She checked the elevators, ramps, and medical equipment that Lily used. She observed the kitchen layout, studied the medication schedule, and reviewed the emergency contact notes. Everything was done with quiet efficiency. Still, Adrian stayed close enough to watch her, pretending he was just walking through his own home. Whenever she opened a door, he listened. Whenever she paused to examine something, he paid attention. Emma seemed aware that he was observing her, but she kept her posture polite and professional. She had worked in difficult households before, and she recognized the signs of a man who carried too much loss and too much fear. She did not interfere or comment. She simply continued her tasks in a steady way, giving him no reason to escalate his suspicion. When night approached, the atmosphere in the mansion remained tense and controlled. Adrian checked the camera feeds once more, making sure every room looked exactly as it should. Emma sat in her room writing notes about Lily's daily needs, unaware of how closely she was being watched. Lily stayed in her wheelchair, quiet, her gaze focused on nothing specific. She could sense her father's stress and Emma's attempt to adapt to the strange environment she had entered. The first day ended without conflict, but without comfort as well. Adrian still viewed Emma as a possible risk, not as someone who might help bring balance to their lives. Lily continued observing everything without reacting, and the mansion, filled with silent tension and hidden cameras, waited for what would happen next. Emma arrived in the house with the same calm behavior she had shown on her first day, and she continued acting in a way that surprised everyone who had lived or worked there before. Unlike the people who had come and gone in the past, she did not try to impress Adrian with exaggerated enthusiasm or repeated compliments. She did not force conversations, and she did not behave as if she needed his approval at every step. Instead, she observed the routine quietly and followed it exactly as it had been explained. When Adrian walked into a room, she did not try to start a conversation to win his sympathy. She simply nodded, continued her work, and kept a respectful distance. This approach confused him because he was used to people trying too hard, speaking too much, or acting overly friendly the moment they entered his home. Emma did none of that. She carried herself with a steady, simple attitude that did not demand attention. Her calmness was not coldness. It was a kind of confidence that did not push or pull. To Adrian, this was even more alarming than open friendliness. He watched her from the cameras, expecting her to slip or reveal some hidden motive, but she never did. Lily noticed Emma's behavior as well. She was used to caregivers who tried too hard to make her smile, who spoke to her slowly, as if she were fragile in every possible way, or who constantly expressed pity when they looked at her wheelchair. Emma did not show any of that. When she entered Lily's room, she simply greeted her in a normal tone, checked what needed to be checked, and then stayed present without staring or rushing. She respected the silence in a way few adults ever did. If Lily did not feel like talking, Emma did not push. If Lily seemed tired, she adjusted the schedule without making a big deal out of it. When she helped with stretching exercises, she explained each movement without acting as if the situation was tragic. Lily found this strange, not in a bad way, but in a way she was not prepared for. Most adults treated her differently after the accident, as if she were a reminder of something sad. Emma treated her like a person, not a symbol of loss. This made Lily curious, even though she still did not respond much. As the days passed, small habits began forming between them. Emma would sit nearby while Lily worked on her school assignments, not talking unless the girl asked something. Sometimes she would read quietly in the same room, giving Lily a sense of company without pressure. When they moved through the house, Emma walked beside the wheelchair instead of behind it, making Lily feel less like someone being pushed and more like someone being accompanied. When it was time for meals, Emma described what was being prepared without using a soft, pitying voice. These details, though simple, started to create small openings in the walls Lily had built around herself. She caught herself observing Emma more closely, trying to understand why her presence did not feel heavy or uncomfortable. Emma never tried to dig into Lily's emotions or mention the accident. She just stayed consistent, and this slowly made Lily feel a little less guarded. Adrian watched every moment through his hidden cameras. He saw how Emma behaved with Lily and how she never crossed boundaries. He noticed the natural rhythm she used when helping his daughter, the easy tone she used when giving instructions, and the quiet patience she maintained even when Lily did not respond. Instead of reassuring him, this made him even more uneasy. In his experience, people who acted naturally were usually the ones with the most polished intentions. He believed that true honesty always came with some kind of discomfort or hesitation, not with the kind of steady ease Emma showed. He replayed camera footage several times, searching for signs of manipulation, small mistakes, or rehearsed behavior. But every action she took was simple and straightforward. This lack of complication made him suspicious. He wondered how someone could be kind without expecting something in return. In his mind, no one gave anything for free. He continued monitoring her closely, waiting for the moment she would reveal the same selfishness he had seen in others. Yet all he found were more examples of her quiet consistency. She never tried to get his attention or approval, even when he entered the room unexpectedly. She never tried to chat about personal topics or gain his trust through compliments. She worked with Lily without drama and followed instructions without questioning his methods. The more he watched, the more uncomfortable he became. He did not understand people who behaved well without trying to show off. He believed that anyone calm and gentle must be hiding a plan under the surface. Emma's steady behavior felt almost like a puzzle he could not solve, and the fact that she did not react to his coldness only made him observe her more obsessively. Meanwhile, Lily continued to watch Emma with increasing curiosity. She noticed that Emma did not change her behavior, whether she was being watched, ignored, or faced with silence. She did not try to make Lily laugh or force emotional breakthroughs. She focused on the present moment, doing each task with care, but without unnecessary emotional weight. Because of this, Lily felt a slow shift inside herself. She still did not speak much, but she no longer felt the need to avoid Emma's presence. She allowed Emma to stay near her room, and sometimes she even followed her with her eyes as she worked. These were small reactions, but meaningful ones. And while Adrian continued analyzing everything through hidden cameras, still convinced that spontaneity was the same thing as deceit, Emma remained exactly who she had been from the beginning, steady, gentle, and uninterested in performing for anyone. On a quiet afternoon, while the house rested in its usual stillness, Emma was helping Lily with her simple daily exercises. They were in Lily's room, with the equipment already positioned the way the therapist had recommended. Emma followed the same steady routine as always, gently guiding Lily's legs, checking her posture, and explaining each movement in clear, simple words. Lily responded the way she usually did, with small nods and focused eyes. Nothing about the moment suggested that something unusual was about to happen. It seemed like an ordinary day, following the same pattern they had repeated many times before. Emma kept her tone calm, never rushing, never adding pressure. She watched Lily's expression carefully, making sure she did not strain herself. It was exactly the kind of afternoon exercise session that should have ended the same way as all the others. There was no tension in the room, no expectation for anything beyond the routine. And then, in the middle of a short pause, something changed quietly without any warning. While Emma prepared to shift Lily's position for the next simple exercise, Lily suddenly tried to move her legs on her own. It was not part of the routine, and it was not something Emma had instructed her to do. The movement was very small, almost invisible to someone who was not paying close attention, but Emma saw it immediately. Lily's muscles tightened slightly, and her expression shifted, not in pain but in effort, Emma froze for a second, not in shock but in careful observation. She did not raise her voice or gasp. She simply placed her hand near Lily's knee to support her, making sure she did not hurt herself. Lily attempted the small movement again, weaker this time, but still intentional. It was not a reflex. It was real initiative, something Lily had not shown in a long time. Emma kept her posture steady, speaking softly and encouraging Lily to breathe and relax after the attempt. She did not treat it as a dramatic breakthrough, but she clearly understood its importance. At the same moment, Adrian was watching everything from another part of the mansion through his cell phone. He had been checking the camera feed out of habit, expecting to see nothing more than the predictable routine. Instead, he witnessed something he never expected. The slight movement of Lily's legs, the effort in her face, and the quiet support from Emma hit him harder than he could explain. His heart raced, not with excitement, but with disbelief. He had been told many times by specialists that Lily's chances of recovering movement were extremely small. Seeing her attempt this action by herself made him feel as if the internal stability he held onto suddenly shook. For a moment, he did not blink. He replayed the short movement in his mind, even as he watched the screen. It was such a small action, but to him, it felt enormous. His thoughts became tangled. He wondered if he had imagined it. He wondered if Emma had pushed Lily too hard. He wondered if this meant something he was afraid to hope for. Everything inside him felt unsteady. Emma, meanwhile, handled the moment with the same professionalism she showed every day. She did not clap or cheer loudly, and she did not treat Lily like someone performing a miracle. Instead, she stabilized Lily's legs gently, checked her breathing, and asked if she felt any pain or discomfort. She encouraged Lily to rest for a few seconds before continuing. Emma then made a small note on her clipboard, recording the attempt as clearly and factually as possible. But even though she stayed composed, there was a quiet warmth in her eyes, a calm kind of emotion that was real, not exaggerated. She recognized how meaningful the moment was, but she did not want to overwhelm Lily or frighten her. Everything she did was simple and controlled, respectful of the delicate progress happening right in front of her. From his phone, Adrian watched Emma's reaction with growing confusion. Most caregivers he had hired in the past would have turned the moment into a performance, either to win his approval or to exaggerate their contribution. Emma did none of that. She did not look around to see if anyone was watching. She did not try to make herself the hero of the moment. She stayed focused on Lily, giving her support without creating unnecessary excitement. Her quiet control made the entire moment feel more genuine, and this unsettled Adrian in a way he could not explain. He felt overwhelmed by the combination of Lily's unexpected attempt and Emma's calm, sincere reaction. It made him question everything he thought he understood about people and their intentions. As the exercise session continued normally after that brief moment, the atmosphere remained steady. Lily stayed quiet, processing what had happened in her own way, and Emma kept assisting her with care and routine. Nothing loud or dramatic followed the attempt, but Adrian could not stop watching through the camera feed. That tiny movement from Lily and the natural way Emma handled it replayed in his mind over and over. He felt a mix of fear, hope, and confusion, all colliding inside him. And what struck him the most was that Emma had not been acting for anyone's attention. She had simply been human. And seeing that, more than the surprising movement itself, was something Adrian never expected to witness. Adrian's anger began long before he decided to confront Emma. It started the moment he found something he was never prepared to see: an old photograph of his late wife lying in a hospital bed. It was tucked inside one of Emma's personal items, something she kept in a small pouch, with other simple belongings. The sight of that photo hit him with the force of a memory he had spent years forcing away. His mind reacted instantly, not with curiosity, but with fear and suspicion. He saw the photo as a clear sign that Emma had some hidden connection to his past, something she had never mentioned. His thoughts spiraled. Instead of asking calmly, instead of considering logical explanations, he convinced himself that this was part of a manipulation plan he had somehow failed to notice. His breathing grew unsteady as he paced around the room, gripping the photo so tightly the edges bent. Every negative experience he had ever had with dishonesty resurfaced at once, blinding him completely. By the time he went looking for Emma, he was no longer thinking, only reacting to his own fear and pain. When he found Emma in the hallway, he didn't give her time to speak. His words came out sharp, accusing, and full of a resentment she had never earned. He demanded to know why she had the photo, raising his voice as if she had already confessed to something terrible. Emma, taken by surprise, stepped back slightly, but did not shrink under his anger. She looked at him with confusion first, then disappointment. When she tried to understand what he was talking about, Adrian didn't let her finish her sentences. He insisted she had been pretending from the start, watching his family for some unknown purpose. His tone was harsh, his expression cold, and his conclusions unreasonable. Emma, hurt and offended, finally stopped trying to speak. She stood there, calm but deeply affected, realizing he didn't want the truth. He wanted a reason to justify his fear. She told him, without raising her voice, that she refused to work in a place where she was treated like a danger. There were no emotional speeches, no dramatic pleas, just a simple, firm statement. And then she walked away, leaving him standing there with his anger turning into something far more painful. Lily witnessed everything from the doorway of her room. She did not call out, did not interrupt, did not even move her wheelchair closer. She simply watched as the one person who had reached her in months was pushed out of the house by a false accusation. When Emma turned and walked away, Lily felt something inside her collapse. She wanted to say something, anything, but the words stayed trapped in her chest. After Emma left the hallway, Lily lowered her gaze, her hands tightening around the armrests of her wheelchair. She felt helpless, frustrated, and betrayed, not by Emma, but by her father's inability to see what was happening. She had only just begun to trust someone again, and that fragile progress vanished in a single moment of anger that wasn't even hers. Lily backed into her room slowly, closing the door with quiet hesitation, as though shutting the last bit of light that had entered their home. In the days that followed, the entire atmosphere of the mansion changed. Without Emma's presence, Lily's routine crumbled almost instantly. She refused to eat, leaving her meals untouched, no matter how many times the staff tried to insist. She stopped participating in her physical therapy sessions, remaining still in her wheelchair, eyes unfocused and distant. At night, she barely slept, turning her face toward the wall and ignoring any attempt at comfort. The progress she had made, the brief moments of initiative and interest, seemed to disappear. It was as if Emma had taken with her the only small spark that Lily had begun to recover. The staff grew worried, but no one dared to challenge Adrian directly. They followed instructions mechanically, unable to fix the emotional damage that had been done. The house slipped back into its old silence, but this time it felt much heavier. The mansion, once again, became a place without warmth. Every hallway felt cold and empty, every room carrying the weight of unspoken regret. Adrian noticed the shift immediately. He saw how Lily avoided him, how she no longer lifted her head when he entered the room. He noticed the untouched plates, the quiet refusal to cooperate in therapy, and the way her shoulders slumped with a sadness that seemed deeper than before. He tried to speak to her, but she gave no response, not even a glance. The absence of Emma echoed in every part of the house, turning it back into the mausoleum it had been before she arrived. But worse, because now Adrian understood what the house had briefly become when she was there, and he understood what he had destroyed. As days passed and Lily's condition continued to deteriorate, Adrian finally faced a truth he had avoided for years. The problem had never been the world outside. It had never been the people entering his home or the professionals trying to help. The problem had been him, his fear, his suspicion, his inability to trust anyone. He had pushed everyone away, including the one person who had helped his daughter without expecting anything in return. Standing alone in the quiet mansion, watching his daughter fade into silence again, Adrian realized that the emptiness around him was not fate or bad luck. It was something he had built with his own hands, and for the first time, he understood what that meant. A few days later, when the house was still stuck in its heavy silence, a report from Adrian's private investigative team finally arrived on his desk. He had ordered the investigation in anger, convinced he would find proof that Emma had hidden motives. Instead, he opened the folder and found information that slowly dismantled everything he believed. The documents showed her entire background: clean history, verified employment, strong recommendations. Nothing suspicious. Then he reached the final section, where the truth he never expected waited for him. Emma hadn't just been a professional passing through hospitals. She had been there the night his wife spent her final hours. She had been the nurse who held her hand when the pain grew too strong. The report explained that during those last quiet moments, his wife spoke about Lily, about her fears of not watching their daughter grow up, and about wanting someone kind to be near her if Adrian ever failed to find help. She had said Emma brought her peace. Reading this, Adrian didn't feel the dramatic shock he might have once imagined. He felt his entire body weaken. He didn't cry loudly. He simply lowered his head and felt his strength leave him in silence. Adrian spent a long time sitting alone in his office, staring at the report. He went through every line again, reading the same sentences until they blurred. He remembered the photo he had found, Emma's small, quiet way of keeping a memory, not a weapon or a threat. He remembered the night he lost his wife, how the hospital staff moved around quickly, how he couldn't stay beside her during every moment because of meetings with doctors and decisions that needed to be signed. He hadn't known who held her hand when he couldn't. Now he did. Emma had been the one who stayed when he had to walk out. His wife had trusted her enough to express her final wish, and he had thrown that person out of his home without listening, without thinking, without even allowing her to explain. The realization hit him harder than anger ever had. It wasn't a dramatic collapse, no shouting or weeping. It was a quiet breaking, the kind that comes when someone discovers he himself is the reason for everything falling apart. It was the kind of truth that didn't just hurt. It exposed what kind of man he had allowed himself to become. He stood up slowly, feeling older than he had in years. The house around him felt painfully quiet. Every step he took through the hallway reminded him of Lily's worsening condition, her untouched meals, her refusal to sleep, the way she stared at nothing because the one person who reached her had been forced away. This wasn't just about Emma. It was about the long chain of decisions he had made since losing his wife. Decisions rooted in fear, not love. Decisions that built walls instead of protection. He had believed suspicion kept his family safe, but instead it had destroyed every connection that could have helped them heal. For the first time, he understood why his daughter looked at him the way she did, and why Emma's steady kindness had felt so threatening. She represented everything he had pushed away for years: trust, vulnerability, and the possibility of hope. Holding the report tightly in his hand, Adrian felt a quiet certainty settle inside him. He needed to fix what he had broken, not because he expected forgiveness, but because avoiding responsibility had already cost too much. Leaving the mansion, he drove to the address listed for Emma without rehearsing any speech. He wasn't going there to beg or to create some dramatic reconciliation scene like the ones people imagined in stories. He was going because he owed her the truth. When he reached the building, he stood for a moment outside the door, gathering the courage to knock. It wasn't pride stopping him, it was shame. When Emma opened the door, she looked surprised, but not hostile. She didn't step forward or step back. She simply waited. Adrian found himself struggling for words, not because he didn't know what to say, but because he finally understood the weight of what he had done. He held out the report, not as proof, but as acknowledgement. He told her he had been wrong, not in a dramatic tone, not with desperation. Just a simple, honest statement that came from someone finally seeing the truth clearly for the first time in years. Emma listened quietly, her expression steady like it always was. Adrian explained everything: the photo, his assumptions, his fear, and how he had misinterpreted her presence from the start. He told her what the report revealed about his wife's final moments, and how Emma had been the one person who brought her comfort. He didn't try to justify his actions or soften them. He admitted the truth plainly, that he had hurt her without cause, that he had damaged his daughter's progress, and that he had acted out of a pain he never resolved. He didn't ask her to come back as if it was something she owed him. Instead, he asked for something far more difficult, for the chance to repair what he had broken, with no guarantee that things would return to how they were. His voice stayed calm, but there was no hiding the heavy sincerity behind his words. He knew apologies alone weren't enough. He knew he had to do more. Emma stayed silent for a moment after he finished speaking. She didn't rush to respond or soften the situation. Her calmness remained the same as always: practical, honest, never guided by emotional performance. But she didn't close the door. She didn't turn away. For her, listening mattered more than dramatic reactions. Meanwhile, Adrian stood there quietly, not expecting easy forgiveness or immediate comfort. He wasn't trying to force her decision. He simply wanted her to understand. He had finally seen the whole truth about her, about his wife's last wish, and about himself. In that silent doorway, the weight of everything he had misunderstood settled between them. And Adrian, for the first time in years, didn't try to hide from responsibility or fear. He faced it directly, hoping she might allow him a chance, not to erase the damage, but to make things right. Emma did not return right away. Even after hearing Adrian's explanation and seeing his sincerity, she did not simply pack her things and walk back to the mansion as if nothing had happened. She agreed to only one thing: visit Lily. That alone was a big step, because she knew Lily had been deeply affected by her sudden departure. When she arrived at the mansion, she entered quietly, without any dramatic return or emotional display. Adrian stayed back, giving her space, respecting the limits she had set. Emma walked through the familiar hallway, feeling a mix of tension and calm, knowing this visit meant more to Lily than to anyone else. When she reached Lily's door, she knocked softly instead of walking in immediately. After a brief silence, she entered the room. Lily was in her wheelchair, pale, tired, and emotionally withdrawn. The moment she saw Emma, her expression changed in a way that required no words. Something in her relaxed, as if the constant pressure she had been living under suddenly eased. Emma approached slowly, kneeling beside her to be at eye level, offering presence without touching or speaking too quickly. As Emma settled near her, Lily took a long, shaky breath. For days, she had refused to react to anything, but now her body instinctively leaned slightly forward, like she was reaching toward a sense of safety. Emma greeted her in the same steady voice she always used, simple, warm, and normal. There was no dramatic reunion, no emotional monologues. Just a real connection resurfacing. Then, without warning, Lily tried to move her legs again. This time, the effort was stronger and more controlled. Her muscles tensed, her foot shifted slightly, and her expression showed determination instead of fear. Emma immediately supported her, making sure she didn't strain herself. She guided Lily gently through the attempt, helping her stabilize and breathe through the movement. There was no cheering from anyone, no scene of exaggerated celebration. It was just a quiet, intimate moment between two people who had built trust slowly and honestly. The effort may have been small, but its meaning was huge. It showed that Lily's progress was tied not to pressure, but to feeling safe. Seeing this, Emma knew what she needed to do. But she did not decide to return, as if she were rescuing the family or fulfilling some dramatic role. She agreed to come back as a collaborator and ally, someone who worked with them, not someone who carried all the weight alone. When she spoke to Adrian afterward, she made this clear. She would return because Lily needed consistency and support, not because the family needed a savior. Adrian accepted this without hesitation. He understood now that Emma's presence was not about filling an emotional void, but about helping create a healthier environment for Lily and for the house itself. Emma's decision was grounded in the same calmness she had shown since the beginning, and Adrian respected it completely. For the first time, their communication was honest and balanced. One of Adrian's first actions after Emma's return was to remove all the hidden cameras from the house. He didn't just turn them off, he physically dismantled them and disposed of them. It wasn't symbolic, it was necessary. He had spent years relying on surveillance as a shield, convincing himself it protected his family. Now he understood that it had only isolated them more. He also reorganized the mansion, opening locked areas, adjusting routines, and creating a space that felt less like a fortress and more like a home. In honor of his wife, he began planning a rehabilitation program dedicated to her memory, not just for Lily, but as a small foundation that could help other families in similar situations. It was the first meaningful project he had touched in years, and it gave him a sense of purpose beyond fear. The mansion didn't suddenly transform into a cheerful place, but it started to become functional, livable. Lily slowly began to improve again, not in dramatic leaps, but in small, steady steps that matched her personality and her emotional pace. She started eating a little more, engaging in light therapy sessions and responding to brief conversations. Her movements, though still limited, showed progress that felt genuine and hopeful. She allowed Emma to assist her with exercises again, and sometimes she even looked for Emma with her eyes when entering a room. The trust between them grew naturally, without pressure. Adrian, watching from a respectful distance, learned to stop interfering with every detail. He still cared deeply, but he began to understand that caring did not mean controlling. He let the professionals do their work, let Lily set her own rhythm, and let the house breathe in ways it never had before. As days turned into weeks, the mansion no longer felt like a tomb filled with painful memories. It became a place where effort mattered more than perfection. Adrian learned to exist without constant vigilance, without assuming every person entering his home had hidden intentions. Lily learned that progress could happen slowly, and that trying again did not mean she had to carry the weight of expectations. And Emma found in the house something she never searched for. Not an instant family, not a dramatic bond, but a place where trust could grow steadily, without pressure or pretense. Nothing about the situation turned into a perfect fairy tale, and that was exactly why it worked. The mansion didn't become a symbol of happiness, it became a space where healing was possible, and for all three of them, that was enough. Finally, we've reached the end of this story. I'm extremely happy that you've made it this far. Thank you very much for watching. Comment below what you thought, and what was the best or worst part. Don't forget to subscribe. Until next time.